Welcome to the podcast. This podcast is entitled, Maybe They're Both Real. There's a UFO congressional hearing coming up on the 13th. So what is that, Wednesday? And they're going to have four guys, Lou Elizondo, Michael Schellenberger, some admiral who was the head of studying the sea or something, and then some other journalist who worked with or who knows about Bigelow, all that with Skinwalker Ranch and all that stuff. So that's going to happen. I guess there's going to be one in the Senate too. And so I feel kind of weird talking about this, but here's just what I have to say about it. And I think we're going to have to start working through this and how this fits into how we see the world. Kind of like Galileo. He saw some stuff that showed that their understanding of the world was wrong. And it didn't necessarily disprove their religion, but they had conflated their understanding of the cosmos with their religion because their religion endorsed it. And so when he said, hey, this thing that we all believe, that's not true, the church had to say, hey, but you can't go against anything we teach because then anything else we teach will be suspect too. So they had to kind of rethink over time, of course, how they thought about the cosmos. And that's maybe what we're going to have to do too. And so I think this is the main problem with, I think, Christians and the UFOs thing is either they go all New Age and, yeah, everything's like spirit, man, and everything's your feelings, and God is just a force, man, and they're a force too, and whatever you feel, all that like hippie New Age crap. And that's not like real Christianity, I don't think. I'm not saying those people can't be Christians. I'm just saying I don't think Paul and Peter would have been on board with that. So then obviously the first question is, well, who created the aliens? And if they evolved on another planet, or if they're from another planet and they look different, then what the heck are they? And is evolution real? And here's the other thing, everybody's tried to claim that evolution proves there's no God. So we've invested ourselves in claiming that evolution isn't real because we've bought into their argument that it proves that there's no God. Maybe that is how it happened. I don't know. I'm skeptical of evolution, but just because we find out something that we didn't think was true, just like the people in the 1500s found out that the earth wasn't the center of the universe, maybe they're going to have to rethink some stuff and separate out their religion from ideas about the world that aren't really how it is. So anyway, that's why I think it's important that we come to grips with this. And I think there's basically three options. Either this whole UFO thing is completely made up and the government somehow is doing a psyop on everybody, and it's completely made up just so they can get us to support higher defense spending. I don't buy that one. Or it's real and people are being abducted and things or other beings are visiting us in craft or whatever. And I think, well, maybe there's just two options. Well, yeah, I think there's just two options. And that's real, but they're part of God's creation somehow, too. And that's kind of what the Vatican has said, is, yeah, they're created just like we are. And maybe we've just been kind of focused on, well, God cares about us. And maybe he cares about them too somehow. Or maybe who knows? Maybe we're not supposed to really understand all of it. But I think the whole idea that, that disproves Christianity right there, because how could Jesus be real and save the world if he didn't save them too? Or, well, I don't know. Maybe he didn't save them. Maybe they're not God's offspring. Maybe they're just creatures. Maybe they're, I don't know. Some people think they're some kind of weird other creation. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? But I don't think that their existence automatically means that Jesus wasn't real and that everything we believe has to be thrown out the window. I don't think that necessarily follows. And I think that's the hard part that everybody's grappling with is, well, that means our religions are just crap. Well, not necessarily. I don't think so. But I think that's the thing that people are going to have to deal with. So the abductions thing, there's that guy, Joseph Jordan, who claims, I think he goes too far. He claims even the sightings and the craft are like optical illusions from Satan. But dude, we have them. Like, people have them. The government has bodies, unless that's part of the psyop, right? The psychological operation against us. But they started a psyop back in the day and clumsily covered it up with Roswell. And then there's another one in New Mexico too. I can't remember what it's called right now. There's so many of them. When you get into the history of it, go Google some stuff. Go just watch Richard Dolan, all his stuff. Something's going on. And the government didn't start it to fool us all, because they hid it. If they were going to start it to freak us all out, why would they hide it? It doesn't make sense. And these things were flying around during World War II and after World War II. They're buzzing the White House. We're trying to chase them down. Like, they can't catch them. Like, that was real. That actually happened. They had a press conference about it. It was in the newspaper. So anyway, the abductions thing itself, yeah, I think maybe there's more to the idea of Satan either doing that or being involved in that than the craft themselves. I think there's some Christian ufologist types who claim that it's fallen angels who have figured out technology or something. I don't know. I know somebody who said, yeah, they're studying our bodies because they don't have bodies. Maybe. But a lot of these abduction people, they're put under hypnosis, right? And so that's kind of suspect, I think. I mean, a lot of them say the same stuff, though. So I don't know. But I think my main thing is here, they're both real. I think maybe that is maybe it. Yeah, they're out there and they're coming here, just like Columbus came to the Americas, just like we travel around. And yeah, Columbus was a human, just like the Americans were humans, but they're sentient beings just like we are, I guess. I mean, I don't know. That Stephen Greer, he was on an interview and he said there's pictures of the aliens like laid out on a table. And they said, do they all look like that? Are they all humanoid? And he said, yeah, all the pictures they're all humanoid. All the beings that come here are humanoid. And I'm like, what? That is so... Why would they all have 2 legs and 2 arms and a head? That's really weird. If you think they all evolved somewhere randomly, why wouldn't they have 6 legs or 2 heads or what? So, see, and the thing with this isn't secret. It's just ridiculed, and that's their strategy. Everyone's heard the Roswell story. Everyone's heard abduction stories. Everyone's heard this stuff. They just ridicule it, and that was their strategy. So even if stuff does get leaked, They just say, oh, those people are crazy. And then they don't really have to keep it under wraps. Even when Grush came out last year in the summer and said, yeah, the whole biologics thing that he said, like the next day, some jerks in the Pentagon released his health records, and I guess he went to the hospital or like a mental hospital or something because he had PTSD. And I think the story was he was suicidal or something. But he got over it, and that's what you're supposed to do when you have PTSD, is get help for it. So that's the other part of this, is there are, and this is what Richard Dolan says, there are factions. Some people want to keep covering this up because I think they're getting rich off of it, and they've done illegal stuff, and they want power, and so they're trying to hide it and keep it covered up. And then there's the other people like Elizondo who are sincerely upset by the secrecy and the lying, and they want it to end. And they think people should know what's going on, at least to an extent. And so it seems like that's what's going on. There's a sincere group of public servants, and then there's the scum behind the scenes who are trying to keep it a secret. And I don't know all the reasons why they're doing that. Remember, there are two government agents, not agents, but the head of the Defense Department for Canada. He said there is a confederation of of civilizations, and they have rules that they won't interfere in a native society unless they're asked to. The guy, can't remember his name, from Israel, who was the head of like their space, whatever, security forces or whatever, he said the same thing. Yeah, there's a federation of alien civilizations, and they've made contact with us. And Trump knows about it, and he almost spilled the beans. But they told him people would freak out. That's been one of the arguments, I guess, since the beginning, is that if people found out, society would collapse because everybody would lose their minds. So there's two guys. I don't think they're crazy. Now, the one guy was pretty old, and the Canadian guy seems kind of weird. I don't know. One thing I thought, think about the time we're living in. Think about the odds, or how, I guess, miraculous it is that I can communicate with you across time and space, or millions of people can communicate with other millions of people instantly across space, and I mean across distance, right? I'm not talking about outer space. And what are the odds of that? I don't mean the odds of it. I mean how unique it is, or like the time that we live in. Think how crazy that is, the time that we live in. Is it really that crazy to think that Christianity could be true? I don't think so. There's only like 10 religions, big religions on the planet. I mean, it's not that far-fetched that one of them's true. I don't know. What's more far-fetched? That there's a creator and he loves us and he cares about us, or that we're just meaningless, random mutations floating through space? They both seem pretty far-fetched to me, right? They both seem kind of like, that takes some believing, or that takes some faith, because theirs takes faith too, because there's not a lot of evidence for theirs. It really comes down to just a belief system. I think if we learn anything from this, it should be that we don't know everything. People who act like they know everything, I don't know what to say about them. We don't know everything. This shows that if you think you know everything, it shows you don't know that much. Because the more stuff you learn, the more questions you should have. I guess what I'm saying is trying to act like it's all fake is getting increasingly difficult. Like, I think the stance Joseph Jordan and those people take is getting increasingly difficult because it's not all fake. Look at all the stuff that's coming out. There's something going on. And there has been something going on. Look at the Lanny Zamora case. The cop in New Mexico, he's just driving through the desert, and he sees this, the Tic Tac shape, and it's sitting there on the ground, and there's two little halfling type beings standing there in white suits. And they get in, they look at him, and then they get in, and they just fly away. Like, what the heck was that? And there was some evidence there that there was something there. All this stuff about Roswell, dude, something. And in Lou Elizondo's book, so he basically says Roswell happened, and he explains the whole thing. And then he was on a podcast with Ross Coulthart, I don't know how you say it. And he said, they told me if I talk about crash recovery programs, I will go to jail. Now, why would they tell him that? And you might say, well, he's just lying. Okay, the idea that he's a disinformation agent, let's talk about that for a second. I heard a podcast with two of his lawyers, or two lawyers. One of them was his lawyer. And they belong to this organization that represents UFO whistleblowers. Maybe they represent other kinds of whistleblowers. I don't know. There's like an hour-long conversation with them. And why would those guys be involved in this? Why would they be involved in a CIA? It's just too convoluted. It's too convoluted. If you look at the people involved in trying to expose this, it doesn't seem like, what's their motivation? It's a psyop. It's a psyop. Well, how come parts of the government are trying to shut them up then? Right? I used to kind of wonder if it was a psyop. It doesn't seem like it, though. It just doesn't seem like it the more you look at it. Think about it. Richard Dolan believes these people. Ross Coulthart believes these people. Like Elizondo, Mellon, Grush. Those guys know stuff, I guess. And they're slowly leaking it out like you would if you were sincere. And yeah, sometimes in interviews, Elizondo says stuff where it kind of seems like, is he lying to us? But then when you see other interviews, you think, he can't say everything. He can't say everything he thinks. Like, how would this be going down if they were sincere? Probably like this. Probably like it has been going down. I don't think it's a psyop. It doesn't seem like it anyway. What it seems like is there are factions. That's what makes more sense. Is there's a faction pushing to get the government to come clean and to stop hiding things from Congress, and to stop lying to everybody and wasting our money on whatever, or at least not telling us what they're spending their money on. Right? And there's this group of people in Congress called the Gang of Eight who's supposed to know everything, and they don't. Right? And if this was a psyop, how come the Senate is trying to push a bill through Congress to set up a board that will gather all the evidence that private companies have? And the bill says non-human intelligence like 15 times in it. And it says people can't be on the board if they have tried to reverse engineer non-human intelligent craft, or if they had handled living or non-living non-human bodies. It says that in the law. So that's part of the PSYOP? I don't think so. So back to the abductions thing. Elizondo has talked about, like, I remember watching a Dirty Jobs, and they were up in Alaska because they're studying or keeping track of the ducks or the geese or whatever they were. And there were just hundreds of them in this field. And they would just run out and grab one and then stick a thing on its leg, I think. I can't remember. I think they took blood, or I don't know, something. They did something to him. And the duck was freaked out and fighting, and then they let him go. And some of the abductions are like that. Some of them are bad, I guess. Like they're being hurt and stuff for no reason. It's not just like See, and those are the ones Joseph Jordan says, well, this is obviously Satan. And so I think Satan is piggybacking maybe on this. Just like they pervert sex with pornography, or they use the internet for bad stuff, or they use movies for bad stuff, or they use, that's what they do. Or they have us use our bodies to kill each other or hurt each other or whatever. Maybe there are actual beings who are studying us or harvesting. Some people claim they're harvesting like resources from us. Who knows? And maybe they do it too. And they like do it for evil purposes. And they're like, hey, this is already going on. We'll just do this too. And instead of people thinking they're being possessed, they'll just think it's an alien. I don't know. I just think people, instead of religious people just saying, oh, that's all just BS, that's not going to work. That doesn't work long term. Regular people, especially young people, are going to look at this and say, dude, there's aliens. Like, what? And then the people at church are going to say, oh, that's all BS. That's not real. It's like, what are you talking about? That's not real. They just said it's real. There's tons of evidence that it's real. What are you talking about? They've just been hiding it from us. And then they'll just say, well, that's not real. You're following Satan if you believe that there's that the government has UFOs. What? That's not going to fly. That's not going to work. Now, there is this thing, I don't know how real this is, called Project Bluebeam, where they're going to try to convince us that all of our religions were made up by the aliens, and so to have a one world government, and they're going to have these like holograms that show all the prophets or something. I don't know. Something crazy that's going to try and convince us that our religions are a joke. I don't know if you were following that thing that happened in Miami. There was something crazy that went on, and there was somebody playing with fireworks, apparently is the story, and all these cops were there. And I saw 3 or 4 interviews, or heard them, of people saying that they filmed some beings walking around, and the cops came and took their phones. So is that a hologram? Some people claimed, oh, they're practicing for the hologram. Dude, I don't know. Who knows? But that just reminds me of the Project Bluebeam thing. Look, there's like some dude in a trailer house talking about it. There was some like rich lady who said her phone got stolen. There was a video of a kid, it could have been a hoax, who knows, calling his dad, who's a cop, and he said, hey, Dad, what was going on? Were you there? And he's like, I can't talk about it. If it was some kind of crime or kids shooting up the place or doing fireworks and freaking everyone out, he'd probably be able to talk about that. I don't know. But here's the thing. If you go and read about this stuff over and over again, when people see a UFO or something crashes, the cops or the military or Men in Black or whoever are there in like an hour, and they grab everything and they tell everybody, you didn't see anything, don't say anything. There are 2 schools where kids saw aliens or a UFO. There's one in Zimbabwe and there's one in Australia somewhere. The Australia one, after it happened, I think it was the day after or maybe that afternoon, they had government people there and they had a big assembly. I can't remember the whole story, but all the adults were threatened. You didn't see anything. Don't tell anyone about this. You didn't see anything. So they all just shut up. It's kind of like when there's a lockdown or a shooting at a school, the staff is told, just don't talk to anybody about anything. Don't talk to the press. So it's kind of like that, I guess. But the kids all said they saw stuff, and some of the older people have come out since, many years later and said, yeah, I saw stuff, and they told me to shut up. I think at that Australia one, there were Americans there, like American government people telling Australians to shut up about it. That's in Ross Coulthart's book, In Plain Sight, I think it's called. And if you think it was drones, oh, it's just drones. Yeah, it might be sometimes. Who knows? The Tic Tac could be a drone. Maybe we've figured it out. Richard Dolan talks about people who claim we've figured everything out. We're just keeping it under wraps. That they figured it out like back in the 60s. That they already figured out anti-gravity, whatever. But they didn't figure that out in the 40s when people started seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. And they were actually seeing this stuff. Fighter pilots chased these things. They don't chase nothing. I was listening to one of the people who was on that, Sarah Gam is her name. And she said the most frequent UAP is an orb. I don't know if she meant the ones that glow or the metal ones. There are metal, or I've seen videos. There's metal orbs that just float around or just fly through the air. One of them's called the Mosul orb. What the heck is that? I guess some people claim they have them, just like in their garage. They found one. It's just this like metal ball, and it flies around. I mean, it doesn't fly around for them, I guess. I don't know. So my point is, maybe that's U.S. government stuff. Maybe they've figured out. Who knows what kind of stuff they have. They didn't have that in the 40s. And so that's the best argument that, oh, it's been drones the whole time. Yeah, not in the 40s. Something else was going on back then. So maybe now, I don't know. If you see something in the sky, who knows what it is. What about, the Phoenix lights? It wasn't just lights. People saw craft floating over their house like 100 feet above their house. It was like a spacecraft. They saw like pipes on it, like it was a craft. These are not crazy people. These are just people who lived in Phoenix. So, we always see those lights. Okay. But it wasn't just the lights that some of these people saw. The Battle of Los Angeles. There's a whole book. I can't remember who wrote it. It wasn't the Jacobs guy. It was somebody else. It was military encounters with UFOs. He talks about a lot of stuff in there, but he talks about the Battle of Los Angeles. And I'd heard about this before, but I couldn't really remember what it was. There were things floating above the city in Los Angeles, and they were shooting anti-aircraft guns at it. It didn't do anything. Thousands of people saw this. Thousands of people saw things floating over the city. That's not a psyop. That was right after Pearl Harbor. Because everyone was freaked out because, I don't even know where the anti-aircraft guns are in LA now. But they had them ready to go because everyone was freaked out about the Japanese. So let's say people like me are being fooled by this. Who's setting it all up? How much of it is fake? What? Right, like those guys who man the nuclear weapons. These things turned the weapons on and were going to launch them, and then they turned them off. What is that? That's not a psyop. What's his name? The guy from Vegas, can't remember his name right now. George Knapp. He went to Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union and talked to a bunch of guys who were in charge for the Soviet Union of looking at UFOs. They said some planes crashed into UFOs. Some of them, I can't remember if they said they were shot down, but some people died chasing UFOs. And they had a whole military program dedicated to reporting UFOs. And he smuggled those papers out of the old Soviet Union before Putin got in and they clamped down again. So if we're all being fooled, how do you explain that? How do you explain all the sightings? How do you explain the fire in the sky guy in northern Arizona? There's so many people who have seen things, who have experienced things. That is There's no way you could do a psyop like that. I mean, I guess you could say, well, they've kept it secret from us all this time, but they haven't kept it secret from us from all this time. They just make fun of anybody who comes out, and that's how they've fooled us all this whole time. Think about it. In the 80s or whatever, people who were talking about this, it's like talking about ghost stories or talking about Bigfoot or talking about whatever, unicorns. They were all crazy. And that's how you sideline them and make them sound like idiots. So I'm kind of thinking that the only real explanation is that they're both real. Jesus is real and the aliens are real. It's not either or. It's both. And some of these experiences are evil. Maybe, think about it, some people are evil. So maybe some of these aliens are evil, some of them are nice, and you throw Satan into the mix. We know he can possess people. We know he can do crazy stuff. And he probably is using this too. That could be true too. It doesn't all have to be him. There's people who do evil stuff. I mean, maybe they're all possessed. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think it works to say that it's all fake. Think about this too. Maybe there are people, maybe Satan just invented the entire abduction phenomenon and then used the aliens as his scapegoat. Now, but then there are like the cattle mutilations and stuff. What's the point of that? But maybe those are just scientific, right? That's what a lot of people think, is they're just monitoring us for scientific reasons. I don't think the whole, oh, they created us and now they're coming back to destroy their experiment. That sounds just as far-fetched to me as any religion or any other explanation. And that one sounds like it's just meant to scare us. I think that one's just a lie from hell. Because if beings are benevolent enough to do an experiment like scientists, then they're probably not just going to do it and then, I mean, I don't know, but look at scientists sometimes are amoral. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, we don't know. All this stuff is just insane to think about. That's the problem. And this whole idea of ontological shock, I don't even really know what ontology means or whatever. It's just like a worldview shift or a worldview shattering, right? But that's what Michael Schellenberger said. He said, yeah, once people started contacting me and I verified that they were real, and they said, no, we have like 12 craft and we have bodies. And he's like a legit journalist. You go Google Michael Schellenberger. He's not crazy. He wasn't into UFOs, for crying out loud. But he's basically been told this stuff by people who are scared to come out in public. And I guess they're still scared because they're not going to be in those hearings. And he said, yeah, there's the ontological shock is really weird because you have to rethink a lot of stuff. You have to rethink a lot of stuff. Like, this is kind of dumb, but I don't kill bugs anymore unless I have to. Because I think I have more power over them, but if I don't need to kill them, then why should I? Because if there are things that are higher on the food chain than me, then I don't want them to be mean to me, right? And that's a crazy thought. Think how insane that is. But I don't know. If this is all true, then I don't know. I think that's why people just want to act like it's all fake. Because it's hard. Because it's weird. Because it's scary. But that doesn't mean it's not true. It might be true. And look at the universe. Look how big it is. All we would need, we could travel at light speeds or beyond light speed if we just had a fusion reactor. All you need is a ton of energy. And if we just figured out how to make a ton of energy, we could just do it like they do on Star Trek. That's real. You could actually do it. So give it 100 years, somebody will figure it out. I mean, it's crazy, but don't get me wrong. There is an aspect of darkness to this, and I think Satan's trying to grab a hold of that. He's trying to warp this into something bad. And that's the thing. I think that's the thing is the existence, the fact that this is real isn't bad. Just like the fact that everything didn't revolve around the earth. That's not a dark idea. It's just not what we thought it was. And we attach our place and our purpose in the universe to that idea. I think that's the reason it's scary the most. And also because we think, well, are we meaningless? Are we just meaningless then? Like the atheists want us to believe? Right? That's the real scary part, is when I heard the idea that, yeah, an alien race just created us as a project. That's the bleakest. Like, that's the bleakest one. That's the bleakest idea. That really threw me for a loop, and I don't know why. But man, just think about that idea. I don't believe it though, for a lot of reasons. I just think that's stupid. I just think that's whoever came up with that idea. I think some people are just spitballing. Well, I mean, think about this. I'm pretty sure this is a true story. Richard Dolan talks about it. When President Carter was getting the briefing on UFOs, one of his people was watching this happen, and they left. And I don't know if the person relating the story heard it or they just came in after the briefing. And Carter had his head in his hands and was crying. And Lou Elizondo, he was on this show, Theory of Everything. And the host asked him, if people knew what you know about the UFO thing, how would that make them feel? And he said, somber. And so I don't know if that just, you'd be somber because you realize there's beings out there that are more advanced than us. But here's the thing. Another recent one, I was going to say, or if Lou Elizondo is saying that because some mad scientist somewhere created us out of apes. But there was I don't know the podcast. I'd never seen it before, but he was on it. Lou was. And I think the last question he asked him, do you believe in God? And he said, yeah, more than I ever did before all of this. So that's crazy. And when he was on Glenn Beck's podcast, he seemed more comfortable on that podcast. Like, I'm with you, Glenn, right? And Glenn's like a super religious guy. And so I don't think Lou is like New Age, like, yeah, it's all spiritualism, man. Nothing's real. Or what? Let's smoke some weed, whatever. It seems like maybe he's like really actually religious. I don't know. So yeah, there's some crazy stuff involved in this, and I mean, who knows what's going to come after that hearing. But I guess my big idea, and this is probably the third time I've said it, is I think they're both real. So I don't think there's any reason to fear this any more than like a war or drones. Have you seen the drones? Drone footage of them attacking people? Like, that is scary. Like sending a drone swarm. Like, they use a $500 drone and just land it on the back top of a Russian tank, the most vulnerable spot, like the behind where the gun sticks out, the back of the turret, and then they blow the top off of it with a little drone with an explosive on it. I mean, that is crazy. It's like an artillery shell that can hunt you down. Like, I saw a video. I kind of wish I hadn't seen it. This guy's in a field and he's like running away from this drone, like playing cat and mouse with a drone. And then the drone finally goes for him and he dives out of the way and it explodes. And I think he's okay, but it's like a grenade that follows you around. And I guess now they have AI drones, right? What's more scary? That, or I guess they're equally as scary. You know, I think one of the biggest reasons maybe that they don't tell us is because one of the theories is that they can just abduct people and there's nothing the military can do about it. Like, they can't shoot down the UFOs. Their technology is beyond us. And so just like we can go, and this is what Lou says, like, tranquilize an elk and then study it or implant it with a tracking chip or something. He says, yeah, what if the elk, he's like, man, I had this crazy dream. And, I fell asleep and now I got this pain in my rear, right? And the elk got tranquilized and now he's being tracked. I mean, think if you really believed that during the night an alien, something could come abduct you and float you out the window and analyze you and then put you back and you'd have no idea. Or that, these UFOs can fly over us with impunity and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. Or the other theory is, I went way deeper than I was gonna, but the other theory is there's some people who claim that they saw Eisenhower walk into a UFO and like meet with some UFO people, like aliens, and they made a deal that they can abduct people from the national forests. It's like making a deal with the Native Americans. Like a more advanced civilization comes and makes a deal, and what's the Native American chief supposed to do? No, you can't do that. They just take whatever terms the aliens give them. The other theory is that they offered us like clean energy, whatever, if we got rid of our nukes. So that was probably a better deal, right? But who knows, right? Who knows? You can find YouTube videos of people claiming they saw Eisenhower get in a UFO, whatever, at an Air Force base. And when he was in Palm Springs once, he disappeared, like nobody knew where he was on the schedule. And then the next morning they said, we went to the dentist or something. He had a dental emergency. I mean, who knows? But there's something going on. It can't be dismissed. And we know that the government hides stuff, partially maybe for nefarious reasons, maybe for kind of society's own good. Because if we know too much stuff, it might freak people out. And okay, maybe that's... But right, what I want is the free energy stuff. Right, that Stephen Greer guy says, hey, you can have a little box that powers your whole house just from sucking power out of the atmosphere. I don't know. He says it's 0 point. And he says he's met with inventors all over the place who have made these, but they want to make a bunch of money off of them. But when they try to patent them, they get bought up and put on the shelf. And I guess there's a law. Go check out the PBD podcast. He had Stephen Greer on because he watched Stephen Greer's movie called The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. And most of his book, or that video, is about this free energy stuff. And there's a law that he talks about in there where the government can, conceal or hide certain inventions. Now, why that ever passed, I don't know. But that's what I'm the most outraged about. Think how much money is spent on energy. Think how much of our lives is wasted paying for energy. If we could have free energy, we'd be so much better off, especially people in the third world. Think how outrageous this is. If that's true at all, Right? And I left a message with my senators, and one of them responded, and he said, yeah, I'm for all the different kinds of energy. Because I said on the message, yeah, this sounds kind of crazy, but there's some people who claim there's free energy. Maybe you should go check it out. We need it. So I probably just sounded crazy, but I don't know. Somebody's got to sound crazy, right? If some of this stuff is true, then it could totally change the world for the better. Even if we don't find out about all the Galactic Federation or whatever, just the free energy is a big deal. So anyway, I kind of went all over the place there, but I think they're both real. I don't think if you believe in UFOs, you have to stop believing in Jesus. I don't know exactly how it all works, but I think that's might be how we have to start thinking about it. Thank you for listening.